Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I want to thank everybody for tuning back in today. Also want to thank everybody for subscribing and for all the comments I've been getting on the videos. I really appreciate it. I read every comment, and as far as I can tell, I think I have replied to everyone on every video I've made to this point. So again, just keep your questions and comments coming. I really appreciate it, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to do this, have interaction, and just talk fishing. And it's something I enjoy doing, and I appreciate everyone that's took the time to watch my videos and to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that as well. So today we're going to talk about, this is another finesse technique that, as things in fishing continue to change, and I'm just, I'm talking about as far as technique, baits, terminal, tackle, all these different things, that it seems like almost like it's never ending. With all the new techniques, it's almost like old techniques can become new again because people aren't throwing them anymore. And that was kind of what spawned my idea about doing the video about the slider worm rig, because that's something for years that I've thrown and you just don't hear people talk about it. And some people like to keep stuff under the cuff. I get it, I fish tournaments, but I just like to go fishing too. And one of the things that made me want to do this channel was sharing things that I've learned from different fishermen over the years, and myself on the water, just kind of experimenting with things, taking them, taking what I've learned and maybe just putting a new twist on it. Well, another one of those rigs that's worked for me over the years has been the Mojo Rig. And again, this could be something a lot of you still throw. You don't hear a lot of guys talking about it, and there may be a reason for that. Some people call it the mini Carolina rig. For me, it's always been something that I've started to use around the pre-spawn, and then into the early summer or early post-spawn, you might call it. I usually rig it up just like this. I made took a piece of line and made one up here to show you. This is called a Mojo sinker or slider sinker. As you can see, it's real thin, it's small diameter, and it's made this way to come through grass and vegetation, better than your standard, Texas rig sinker or Carolina rig sinker, or even the barrel sinkers that companies make nowadays. And they make these in lead and in tungsten. Now, you don't see as many of these in tungsten as you do a lot of the others. So for this example, I've got some of the tungsten ones. This one just happens to be a lead 3/16 ounce. I usually only ever use 1/8 ounce and 3/16 ounce. I usually use 10 to 12 pound line, depends on the cover, and it depends on how quickly I want this thing to sink. The cover has a lot to do with it. I fish a lot around bank grass. Anytime there's like sparse grass and lily pads, if it's heavy vegetation, this probably ain't your best choice. If it's a lot of heavy wood cover, gnarly laydowns, limbs, stuff like that, this might not be your best choice. Now you can fish the outside edges of it, but as far as directly into the wood cover, it doesn't come through that well, and you can see why. Here's what you got though. You got this sinker. This one's 3/16, and I usually peg it anywhere from 6 to 12 inches above the line. I'm hoping you can see this well. If not, just let me know in the comments, okay? But I moved my camera around because I have been getting some comments, people say they have a harder time seeing some of the things I've been showing, so I've been trying to move the camera closer to give everybody a better shot of what I'm talking about. But here I use two different things. Let's talk about the sinker first, to peg this sinker. There's two ways you can go, and there's maybe a lot more ways you can go. I'm just showing you the things I use. You got your bobber stops. These are made by Wu Tungsten. As far as tungsten goes, that's the only kind I use. And you can use bobber stops. You can just simply put one on your line on each end. But a lot of times I use these. And these are, I know they're still made because I've ordered some recently from Tackle Warehouse. And they're just called peggets. And it's just pretty much a long rubber strip with a little flat end on it. And you can pull this thing right through, and it'll pull all the way through, and you can just cinch it up tight, and you can move this thing up and down the line however long or short you want to make your leader. You know, once you get that pegged in there, it moves really, really easily. Bait choices, I have the most luck with two baits. This is a Zoom Centipede. And the other bait I'll occasionally use is the Zoom Finesse worm. I'll talk to you about colors in a few minutes. The reason I started using the Centipede is basically because of the process of elimination of the way this bait falls. You want a bait that's flat-sided, and you want the flat side to be down when you're rigging it. Because when you're dragging this, and this goes down, and this thing sinks slowly, if you use the flat side, it's going to help that bait fall even slower. And that's what you're looking for. You want it to be a very, very slow, gradual, gliding fall. And that's when I feel like I've gotten the most bites with this technique. You can adjust the size hook to whatever plastic you're using. Now, like I said, a lot of people call this a mini Carolina rig. A lot of guys fish this thing, you know, a lot. You know, it's something that they believe in and they use often. I have had the most luck with it. Once the water gets really warm and less fish are shallow and more fish are moving deeper, the only time I seem to have real good success with it after the spawn is over is if there's like a time when they're feeding on small bait fish. If you're catching fish and you get one in the boat, and you know sometimes you swing one in and there's a lot of small bait fish, this Centipede is a good choice then. I fished flukes on it. I fished brush hogs on it. You can use just about any small bait you want. That's personal preference, really. I just noticed as far as getting bites that the Centipede and rigged it this way with the flat side down is the way that I've had the most success, gotten the most bites. Same thing with a Finesse worm. A lot of people rig, their plastics. They'll just keep twisting it around and use it to get as much use out of it as they can as it tears. I try to always fish it on this rig with the flat side down. And again, that just helps with the fall of the bait. You can tell it's pretty much round all the way. And then you have this flat side. And that's where you want to run your hook up through, so it's rigged this way on the hook to help slow the fall of the bait. The bobber stops or the pegget, that's personal preference as well. The pegget's quicker. To me, it's a little easier. Bobber stops, I use them, but on this particular rig, the pegget is what I like to use the most. As far as the retrieve, it's just cast it and drag it slow. Cast it and drag it slow. It's got an 1/8 ounce, this rig with an 1/8 ounce on it. You may have to throw on spinning tackle. Some guys do spinning. I most of the time always fish it with caster, bait caster, medium light rod, 12-pound line, but you can throw it on a spinning rod, and some people like to, especially with the 8 ounce. It's real light, and it's it can be tough to cast. As far as another area where this bait seems to work well, I spoke of the pre-spawn. When you're fishing in pre-spawn, you have your secondary points going into the backs of your pockets. This is something really, really good to throw in, especially that last week before they move on bed. This thing around a secondary point, working your way back to where they're going to spawn, this thing can be really, really good to you. And I have also, now I live in a different area now. There used to be a lot of lakes back where I'm from that there were smaller lakes, and during the spawn, some of those fish like to spawn a little deeper around stumps, and if you know the stumps and you know where they are, and you can get off of them, get away from them, get your boat about a cast length away, and if you notice a fish on a stump or on a spawning around that stump, you throw this around there, a lot of times they have a hard time letting it go. And I'm pretty sure it's because of this thing just floating free back there. And again, that's something where you got to know the area, and you got to know that the fish is living there. Because see, in spring, more than any other time of the year, bass are always territorial. But I think in the spring, when they're thinking about spawning and when they are spawning, and even the males after the spawn is done, they're going to hang around. So they're more territorial that time of the year than any other time. So anything that just comes kind of gliding through, at a slow pace, and it's just this, they just don't want it there. And something like this, a lot of times, looking so natural when it comes through, it'll get you a bite. And there's other ways you can catch them too. I'm speaking from my own fishing and things that I've seen and things that have worked for me. This is June bug. This is the June bug centipede. There's, watermelon red is a good color. Black. When the water gets a little bit of color to it in the spring, if it rains a lot, I'll just put black up there. I've done really good with black. Now, I talked about it a little in the early pre-spawn. Red bug, the red with the green flake, that is a good color. In the early pre-spawn, when they're starting to move out, those same secondary points that you fished when they were going in, where they're, a lot of times fish when they're moving back out, they'll stop in those same areas. If there's anything around there to eat, when they go through there, they're going to eat it because they're hungry then. They've done their business and they're ready to move back out. Red bug is a good color then. And this is green pumpkin red. And on the finesse worm, the same colors. But one other color I've really, the last few years, had really good success with is green pumpkin magic, it's called. And it's just green pumpkin, but it's got a lot of silver and gold flake in it. I've had a lot of luck with that. Some of the other sizes of sinkers, and like I said, they make this in tungsten and they make it in lead. But there's different companies make them a little different. Some are a little bigger, and some are a little wider. This particular sinker is the one I like the best. It's made by Finesse, Phenix, I believe is the spelling. Tackle Warehouse sells them. There are several tungsten companies now that make these also. You can go tungsten if you'd like. For years, the only sinkers that were made for this technique, people used to use split shot, and I didn't like split shot. They call it a split shot rig too. It's pretty much the same thing, same principle behind it. I just liked these these smaller sinkers like this better, and they were, they're easy to peg, and you can go whatever weight you'd like. 1/8 ounce, 3/16 was just my choice. Again, it's just a confidence technique when you're trying to get bites. And something else about this too, the slider rig and this rig in particular, some people just like to go fishing and catch fish. This is a rig that's for that. Now, if you're not a tournament person, if you're just somebody who's loading up your boat and you're taking your, one of your kids with you, or a buddy from work with you, or whoever, this is a rig that you can get bites with. If you throw it around and just drag it around, you're going to get some bites with it. They ain't always big bites, but you'll get bites with it. It's not always a good rig in tournament situations unless you've got a place where where some fish are, you've caught some of them, the bite is slowed down, and you want to try to go through the area one more time with something. Some people do a shaky head, slider, head rig. This is another one that will get fish that are left in the area that haven't bit yet. It's a place to give this a try. But this is just something that anybody can use. There's lots of techniques like that in bass fishing. This is another one. This one's pretty simple. Cast it and drag it back real slow, and it'll just get you bites. Another thing about this bait I've really noticed, we have a couple of lakes that I fish now that over the years have gotten spotted bass on. I do well with spotted bass with this rig too, and even on days when it's just something I think about in the fall, and it's kind of, if you got clear water, it's kind of like a chase scene kind of. When they see this in their eyes, I feel like it's a worm, but it's something chasing down, and it's behind this sinker. And when they're following, they see this dragging along behind the sinker. I think it's almost like a competition thing. It's like, I'm not going to let him get that. Whatever he's after, I'm going to get it. And I think that's part of what generates the bites. And this is just my thinking. Sometimes my thinking's crazy, but when I'm out there fishing, I'm just basing it on things I've seen and experienced when I'm fishing with this rig. So I hope this helps somebody catch some fish. If you got any questions about it, I think I mentioned it, but 10 or 12 pound line is what I use the majority of the time. Whatever your preference is. I use copolymer a lot. Some people use, not a lot of people use fluorocarbon. Some people still use mono. I don't use mono for my bottom stuff anymore. I use copolymer for just about everything. P-Line makes one. I think it's CCX is the one I use. That's been real good for me. But whatever you use, 10, 12. If you use fluorocarbon, you might even be able to go down to 8, depending on how clear the water is. But you just rig it up, cast it out, drag it back, put whatever your small piece of plastic you want. I'm just saying, I've had better luck with the flatter plastics than I had the rounder ones. The rounder ones, the fall isn't the same. It's a different kind of fall, and I think the slow fall is key. I hope this helps y'all catch some fish. It's just another thing I like to do, and keep the comments and the questions coming, and I'll do all I can to reply to everyone that I get. I want to thank everybody again for watching, for the comments, the questions, and thank you especially for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm going to keep pumping these things out as often as I can and I'm able, and I'm going to be getting back out on the water soon to try and make some content out there on the water as well. And I appreciate everybody watching, and thanks, and I hope y'all have a good day.